Revolver is, in any case, a fascinating effort. I love how it's almost Guy Ritchie attempting to do... It's a bit of Sexy Beast, it's a bit of Mulholland Drive, it's a bit of Fear X. I don't know if he would have seen these films, but it reminds me of that current. It's very distinct from his previous work, and yet it also wants to acknowledge it, synthesize it into something different, more abstracted, and I don't mean this in a pejorative sense to say that the film is a failure, but intelligent. I don't know if I would consider the film a phenomenal success. Ritchie's defended the film by claiming that most people aren't going to get it because it's esoteric. And I don't know if he's trying to imply that the film is going to go over people's heads because it's smarter than them so much as it's so... It's specifically, it's niche. It's appealing to people who are into obscure mythology, unusual, topics which are usually the domain of hobbyists, chess, Kabbalah, mathematics, quantum mechanics, Buddhism. It's very tempting and exciting to then tear these kinds of films down for being pretentious, and that's ultimately probably partly what's happening in Revolver, is something akin to an ineffective communication of ideas. However, I love so much the idea of one of these films actually working. I would prefer for these films to work than to not work. I do suspect that the most ardent critics of this film probably in some way want it to fail because it's arrogant to even attempt a film such as this. I appreciate the ambition, even if there is some arrogance involved. If the film works, the film works. I'm not convinced Revolver works. It's not impressing me as much as I would really want it to, although I am watching it with my face too close to the screen to allow my eyes to be really valid and useful past the age of probably 80 at this point. And I'm obsessed with every decision being made in the film because I want to know why. It's part of this era where films are being discussed on forum. Films like Donnie Darko, Primer, and Time Crimes, that came out a bit after this. I love those films which are being fastidiously and enthusiastically, theories are being applied, director's cuts are being compared back and forth. And Revolver has one which is... Revolver's got an interesting director's cut in that he made the film shorter, and he felt that was the more definitive version of the film. I think that's fascinating, because normally it's this is not the case, I think. Anyway, I happen to consider... It's one of these films such as... Reference Fear X is one where I'm curious about I'd love to sit down with Refn and ask him about every decision made in the film, because I'm obsessed with the idea that there was a really interesting profundity behind it all. Even if there wasn't, I love how he's managed the illusion that there is. That's impressive and interesting to me in and of itself. I feel this way about Brian De Palma with The Fury. Kubrick's The Shining could be considered the ultimate example of this popularly. And I think if no interviewer, no critic ever sat down with Hitchcock and asked him any major questions about Vertigo, which is partly part of that film's mystique, we could suggest... Yeah, as I said, Revolver reminds me of that world wherein films could be made to just speculate about on forums, on IMDb, an extensive FAQ on IMDb. Fun, interesting stuff, I think. Now, where this film does fall flat, if I may be fairly blunt, is I feel as though the cinematography could have been more polished. I feel like they would have been better off with Michael Mann's cinematographer, Dante Spinotti, or whomever he was working with at that time. I think then Diane Beebe would... Maybe that's asking for too much, but that would be incredible. I think that would have been... It's such a different photographic philosophy too, and it's the same cinematographer which he had been working with on Lock, Stock and on Snatch, and I just almost feel as though someone more appropriate ought to have been applied here. And I would also consider some of the, if not all of the, I'm unsure how I feel about the Jason Statham works as the lead, I think, especially given that we recognize him as an archetype from Ritchie's previous kind of Long Good Friday-esque films, kind of British gangster world. I like how it takes place in this unnamed, almost Lynch-esque pastiche of an American kind of southwest city, like an LA or Vegas more, or Phoenix more so than LA, to be fair, or Houston, or one of those, you know. What we have also is just this bizarre, very uncinematic, not very photogenic and jarring faces in the frame, like Ray Liotta's, Andre 3000's, Salvatore, the chap from The Sopranos. Like, it's just, they don't seem right. And I don't know if that's the film kind of flopping, or the film, or Guy Ritchie wanting that to have a certain effect. I hope the latter. I suspect it could be the former, however. In any case, Revolver is one of the films which gets me most excited to think about and watch, try to dissect it, learn its secrets, crack it open, except I don't know if there's anything there. I want there to be. And that's enough. That's enough. Let me know below if you have any thoughts, feelings on 2005's Revolver from Guy Ritchie. Thanks again, my good and dear friends. I appreciate it very immensely.